What up, everybody? This is Johnny and Mike from the Vet Victory Podcast.
We appreciate your support. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we hope you enjoy this episode. Cut off the beginning, so it's always better to like give it a few seconds and then.
Oh, okay. What's up, Reneice? How goes it, man?
It feels weird saying Reneice though, but Sergeant First Class Massey, what's up?
Hi, sir. How are you? Are you a captain now, right?
Oh no.
Are you pending major?
Pending?
He's already made.
You're a major?
Been a major since June 24th, 2020, in the middle of COVID. That's why they promoted me. They're like, oh, it's COVID. He can't get anything.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You would have been
I'm on the
awesome if you
reserves
stayed
now,
active, though.
Yeah, I miss it.
But that's a good segue, though, right? Like, where
right.
were you at, Reneice?
9/11.
On 9/11, like when that all popped off. I can remember where I was, but like, where were you at that time? What kind of drove you to join the
I
service?
was on the beautiful island of St. Thomas in Charlotte Amalia High School. I think they like announced it over the intercom, which they never used. It was weird. I didn't really know what the Twin Towers were, and they had everybody come outside and said prayers around like a flagpole on campus. And so that's where I was at. Now, in regards to why I joined the military, I joined to get away from the projects. That's why I joined the military. My environment was very dark, and I didn't want to end up being a product of my environment or being in like a very, very bad position. So I decided to get away from my family and do something different. My dad was pissed because he was in the military at the time, and we briefly talked about me becoming a lawyer and going through JAG and stuff, and I was like, no, I'm ready to go now. The Air Force was like, that'll take 6 months to a year. And I was like, all right, so let me go check out the Army. And they was like, yeah, we can take you right now. Like, you can be a 92 Yankee supply. You could be a cook or like water. What's it? 92 whiskey or something like that.
92 water purification, boy.
Let's try it. Tank tour repair, landmine specialist. Water purification? Water purification. That's it. What? Water purification. I'm telling you, it's a snap. My brother's a pool man. Hey, look, you take dirty water and you make it clean. How hard can that be? I don't know. And hey, and if there is a war, what are we gonna go in there with? Water balloons?
Oh man.
And I was actually like in JROTC at the time and the S4. So I was like, oh, and they were like, yeah, it'd be the same thing like what you do in ROTC. And I was like, yeah, I could do that. And then I went to Puerto Rico for MEPS, and they told me I was a 92 Yankee.
So, what were your like?
When did you join? What year?
2004.
Okay.
And
Now-
did 9/11? Go ahead, Johnny.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Did 9/11 play like any part or like emotional factor?
Zero.
None. Not necessarily like you're tied to the U.S., I guess, or like you wanting to be like this dedicated soldier, like some of us. I don't know. Like maybe make your reasons different, but knowing that you were coming in at that time of the country state, like did that weigh in on you a little bit? Did it? I mean,
No,
was it something
I
that
didn't.
you thought about?
I was not privy to a lot of information growing up, so like the news and everything that was going on, I didn't fully understand it. I didn't really care about it. I was more living my best life in high school on a small island. It wasn't until after I joined, and maybe like a couple years later, after I joined, they were telling us that out of Fort Lee at AIT is when they were identifying people deploying when they get to their units. And I was like, oh, I don't know what a deployment is, you know? I got to Fort Sill, and that was my rude awakening of what deployments were.
So Fort Lee, AIT is when you first started hearing about Iraq and Afghanistan?
Yeah.
So essentially, you blindly joined, trying to get away from where you were at, like your current environment at that time, and then just stumbled upon to this good old army life.
Yeah. All I remember is being told, when you go to training, it's a game. Remember, it's a game. And then I got to Fort Sill, and they were like, "Oh, we got soldiers coming back." And I'm like, "Coming back from where? Like, what are you guys talking about?" I was super, like, oblivious and naive, not understanding. And then it was like, we got our first scare because one of our commanders accepted a deployment, but it didn't happen because he was PCSing. So he accepted a deployment for the battalion, and he was PCSing. So the incoming commander was like, I don't know the details or anything, but I know we didn't go anywhere.
And what unit were you in Fort Sill?
I was with 19th Maintenance.
That's right.
No, I remember.
Boy.
HHD 19th Maintenance. And then we deactivated and became Bravo Company 100th BSB.
Okay. So we were actually at Fort Sill right around the same time. Mike, don't know if you knew that. Didn't know each other. Never once ran into her, which is crazy. But I remember 19th Maintenance, and then I deployed, came back, and by the time I came back,
because we were supporting all those guys. Because they made a big deal about it, like making sure that all the maintenance and support for logistical support was there for a lot of the field artillery guys.
Yeah.
Have you been over since then?
Over where?
Afghanistan or Iraq?
So I went to Afghanistan with 175.
Okay.
And then I went to Iraq with the BSB.
Did you go to Iraq with the BSB after Afghanistan?
Yeah. So after you left, we went to Afghanistan, Taji. I'm sorry, Far Bright.
That was, where's that?
In Iraq.
In Afghanistan. Far Bright was
where
in
in
Afghanistan, Kunar province.
Okay. And so, being in Afghanistan and knowing why we were there, and obviously approaching 9/11, stuff like that, I guess my follow-up question is, if 9/11 didn't have any direct bearing on your reason to join, what has the impact of being in Afghanistan since then had on you, in as far as seeing the country and its state and us being there, and what's it meant as far as coming from a country like the United States and going and seeing a country like Afghanistan and the very lack of civilization that they have over there?
Or better yet, the comparison of where you actually come from in the islands to the States and then to Afghanistan as well.
So I was actually there in Afghanistan when they did their elections. I think that was their first elections, if I'm not mistaken, that the 101st had the mission in regards to like making sure their ballots and stuff was secured. And we got to see how people were so happy that they were doing it, and then we also got to see how others were not happy about it. When I went to Kunar province, I did see similarities because like you know you only see what you hear on TV or what people talk about. And when we was in Kunar province, our living conditions were not like how other people talked about it, I guess. Like, I saw flowers, you know, like we had a guy that would like take care of a garden in our little tiny fob. So it kind of reminded me to like living back home on St. Thomas with, like it was very hilly, I should say. But staying in the military now and knowing what I experienced, granted my deployment was not like how others like Johnny's might have been, you know, and it definitely wasn't like how you and First Arm Fountain and Tracy Green, how they experienced their deployment with the loss of Snow and Hess, or even the Sergeant Major getting blown up and the Colonel getting blown up. So it wasn't like that, but it did change my way of thinking and my style of strategic thinking for logistical support. And I think it made me a stronger leader too. Like experiencing, like we got rocketed a lot, of course, right?
What's that?
That was Rodney's phone. We got rocketed a lot while we was there. Luckily for us, no one died. We did have to support one tick for, I think it was like special forces or civil affairs, and one person I think got shot. But to this day, I don't know if they survived or not. They probably are alive. So we had to do speedballs, I guess, you know, to help out in that mission. But it did help me grow, and it definitely helped me grow. And I used that experience to, like, when I trained my lieutenants, my future lieutenants, those cadets, those are things that we would talk about, so they had a better understanding of like what they were walking into, and how you're not the only person in the room that think you, like, you know, that knows a lot. You have people around you that know more. So that's what that experience has done. Knowing that we entered into this situation because of 9/11, I watched more of the documentaries with my son so that he also has a better understanding. So it changes the outlook and the purpose.
Obviously, did you watch any of the news with us withdrawing? I mean, did that affect you at all with just your experience over there?
I was in my opinion, I felt that the withdrawal out of Bath shouldn't have happened before, in my opinion, before the embassy or any other like political administration actions was closed out and ended. And that didn't necessarily happen. And now seeing that you had to redeploy more soldiers into that environment without that lack of, you know, in my opinion, air support, ground support, and so forth. So, I mean, but hey, people make decisions, you know. You have to make a decision. It's better than no decision.
I mean, this is true.
Very true.
This is very true. So, overall, I don't know. I did a very different outlook for you and like why you joined. It's actually great to hear somebody else's background. People do join for different reasons. What do you have like a newfound love, I guess? Like, does it make you more aware of like what's going on in the country per se? Like, so it's something that you weren't really necessarily aware of while you were in the islands growing up, but now are you a little bit more, I don't know, does it make you pay attention to world stuff going on now? I mean, I know people today that are still serving as soldiers don't really care too much for the news. I didn't, you know what I'm saying? So like, does it give you a different perspective?
I think deploying with 175, it made me more aware. Even though, like, you remember, Johnny, like our lead up to the deployment was crazy.
Right.
But being there and understanding, like, you know, I guess having an understanding of the people of the country, interacting with interpreters, you know, seeing how some people were living in a sense of like, you know, and then going to Iraq, I think going to Iraq provided me with more interest in international affairs, with the military there and tactics that were being used. You know, I would be around whenever some of the officers or senior NCOs would get done with like their advising missions, you know,
Right.
And they're pouring so much into these advising missions, but you can only do so much. You can't necessarily force anybody to do anything. They have to be willing to do it. But yes, I think Afghanistan opened my eyes, but getting ready to deploy to Iraq really made me more aware of international affairs.
Which one did you have first again?
I did Afghanistan, Kunar province first, and then afterwards we did Taji.
Yeah, that makes sense then. I'm not gonna lie, like, for myself, Iraq, I went there twice before I ever went to Afghanistan, and you just kind of settle into that. For me anyway, it was a lot easier to kind of like learn some things. especially from advisory missions and just being educated as a whole. I think Afghanistan was very fast-paced and just like a major like eye-opener. You know what I mean? Like either you got it or you didn't. And you just kind of moved forward from that. You know what I'm saying? It was very quick. You didn't really have a lot of time to sit down and dwell on like what it was that you were going through. I don't know if your interaction there was the same, but they're two totally different fighting styles and just deployments, period, really.
Yes, they were definitely two different, but also the missions were different. You know what I'm saying? So like, to me, I was more placed in a, of course I'm admin, right? But I think I was placed in more of like a support, a overall like higher level of support. Right. And I had to be able to push my supply sergeants to support like maybe over 10 locations, while I had one supply rep in Kuwait. I had two in Iraq, and then their companies were like broken down in so many different locations. So we had to like really think outside the box in order to support them, like, you know, getting very, very important like pacing items out to various locations, preparing for the possibility of like, what is it, a river or a dam or something breaking. So it was like so many different things, and it was like, what?
It is.
But Afghanistan to me was the scariest one, though.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, even for me too.
Why?
I mean,
Why?
like it was the constant getting rocketed, and then like I was on edge because like that was my first deployment, and they warned you about, like, you know, if you see locals with camera phones, you know what I'm saying, like taking pictures of stuff. And I did see a local with a camera phone taking pictures of like we had like a partial CIA compound, and they were just taking pictures, and I didn't know, and I freaked out, and I ran to my S2 like full speed ahead. I probably was like a nerd or something, I don't know, but you know, you constantly getting that boom, you know. And then they were walking around on us because we were like in this very small, like, you know, this little bowl. So it was trippy.
Did you ever feel that like the terrain in itself made it or contributed to your edge? The terrain difference between Afghanistan and Iraq?
Absolutely. Like for me, like it just, I was like, we're looking up and the mountains are right there. You know what I'm saying? So they could see us, and you know, they see us, we see them. So like, you know, they had the higher advantage, but lucky for us at our file, we did have field artillery guys there with us, and they held it down. I had to call in ammo multiple times. I don't say multiple times, but this one time we went close to black. And I had to call it in to the BSB at Jaff, I think. And it was a power struggle until I had to like be very, very aggressive and influential to get our ammunition, because they were like, well, you didn't report a shortage earlier today. We weren't getting shot at earlier today.
Oh, man.
It probably didn't help too on the fear factor. It didn't help that you were in a unit and you had just got to us like right when everybody got back. And everybody's just talking about how much this happened and that happened and boom this and boom that. And every single person there had pretty much had some type of real world story. And you're just like,
Your
okay, cool.
Sergeant Major Smith. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And what was the colonel's name at the time? I can't remember.
Walrath?
Walrath, yeah. Yep. So, like, knowing what happened to them and, like,
well, what happened to Colonel Walrath didn't happen on my deployment. That happened afterwards with the SVAB mission.
Yeah, with the SVAB mission.
Yeah.
And like DJ, they went on the SVAB mission and their compound got overran. Ours, I don't.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like it was a lot of things, and like I remember Sergeant Major Smith was like an eye pro and gloves, and
dude,
then the other Sergeant Major that came in afterwards
got his calf taken off, and then
still
came back. in the same deployment. I mean, damn. That's a bad dude.
Yeah, for real.
But I remember him like harping over iPro and why. I remember harping over like wearing your gloves and why. So like that train that was like stuck in my head. Like when we went out there, I was like, and then first time I did the same thing too. But then understanding the why behind, we know what iPro is, but like when you don't think about shrapnel flying,
That's true.
So yes, hearing those stories, seeing, I think before I got to Fort Campbell, someone told me that 2nd Brigade, I think, had the most deaths in the deployment. And I was like...
Close to 80.
I was like, what? I was like, what you mean? Like, what are you talking about? They got a count? Like, who does that? And then when I got there and, like, understanding and, like, Sergeant Major Smith doing his welcoming brief to, like, everyone new, and he laid it down. He did not hold anything back. He told us the reality about everything and the purpose of being safe and being aware. So yeah, the stories did not help, but they did help, if that makes sense.
Right.
It helped me be a lot more aware. It helped me understand the purpose, and it helped me also make sure that my soldiers were safe. I deployed with soldiers directly under me that I never worked with, essentially. So I had one soldier that came from the BSB, and then I had another soldier that belonged to us in the FSC at one point. And then I was working with 2 officers that I never worked with before. So it was a lot different.
Would you say your deployment changed you? Either one of them? Both of them? Do you feel different?
I do. Besides a lack of sleep, but it helps me in my thought process, the thinking process of leading soldiers and understanding the purpose behind supporting missions logistically and making things happen, not sitting on anything because someone's life might depend on it. For example, me calling in for ammo, to support the 777. Listen, you don't ever want your 777 to go low, but when they go low, butt cheeks clench up. So yes, the deployments did change me. Afghanistan helped me realize the reality behind everything. Iraq, and it helped me prepare for my strategic role in my deployment to Iraq. And so I was more of we're working 10 steps ahead as much as possible. 10 steps ahead as much as possible. We had soldiers that were sleeping in dirt. They had weird concertina wire compounds, right? So they didn't have full security. So we had to make sure that we were doing what we can to support them. And our living conditions were drastically different and better than theirs. But I made my soldiers read the reports every day while we was in Iraq for the soldiers that were out forward, that were really doing a lot, what they were dealing with. It was wild to me, but I made sure my soldiers understood the reality behind it, and I made them read the reports every day.
Now let's ask this. So that's the military side of the change, coming from where you come from and what your plan was, I guess, after joining the service and what you had thought out for yourself. Has your deployments changed you in any way that has maybe given you a different outlook on your personal life, maybe wherever it is that you want to go in the future, how you're going to continue out the last few years of your career, and then what you're going to do after that? Has any of that given you a different outlook, or you still kind of the same?
I don't know. I think in my personal life, it made me realize that I needed to get closer to my son. I think, I actually ran across an email that I sent my son's dad on my first deployment, and it was a made-up will. In the event something happened to me, I wasn't able to get the will done before my deployment, but this is what I'm requesting. This needs to happen. This is the POCs for this, But over time, it just made me realize the importance of spending more time with my son, because I'm an extreme workaholic. And soldiers are unfortunately just casualties of war most of the time, and at any time, we may be sent somewhere else and just never come back.
Yeah, that's true. For you were at Virginia Tech?
Yes.
And what is that like, teaching basically, I would imagine, babies who are now college students in ROTC that may or may just be taking it as an elective, don't really care about ROTC or the Army, and then those who are like full-blown contracted cadets ready to go in and kill, but we're kind of like winding down from both wars. What's that like, training the future?
So I actually took on a great project while I was there, and the cadets were being trained all the time on tactical operations, and they love hearing, your war stories. So one of the projects I took on was that I actually would request the cadre to allow me to teach some of their classes in regards to sustainment operations and give them like the real life, like, okay, this is how you may move forward, but let's start off with the basic stuff, Mm-hmm. And I would give them examples on like the calling in for ammunition, or when something gets blown up, like it just doesn't blow up and then go away. Like it blows up and someone got to do paperwork to make sure it's properly documented, So they would ask questions, and that's actually the best part, is being able to just inform them and tell them. But as a logistician, I felt that it was necessary for them to understand, like every single one of them, no matter what branch you get accepted into, that you have a role to play when it comes to property accountability, especially within your platoons, and then maintaining it for NTC or JRTC, right? Or even a deployment. So like that was something that we talked about and they understood. And I took pride in that,
I had that question at the top of my head. Do you, I don't know. I've forgotten already.
Are you confident in the future of the Army?
That's a good one.
After you are now gone from, where are you at now?
Well, I'm technically homeless. I'm on my way to Hawaii. Like, our flight leaves tomorrow morning.
What are you doing there?
I'm supposed to go to 3rd Brigade, 25th ID. So I'm going back to, little 101st. But I'm going to be in a BEB this time.
So let me get this correct. You did 2 deployments, and then you essentially, not quickly, but in a somewhat fast transition, went from Campbell to Virginia Tech, correct?
Right.
So you immediately got to use your 2 deployments worth of experience, take that into Virginia Tech, train the future leadership of the Army. A, did you get that same thing when you came up? And B, do you think that should be more of the part of the subject teaching when educating people on how to do their jobs, is just more real life personal experience?
So me training cadets, like literally I was like the smallest piece of the puzzle, you know what I mean? Like I think each one of our groups of cadets, they had probably like 2 or 3 instructors, and most of them were combat arms. So they took the bulk of that. I sprinkled some logistical love in there every once in a while. Well, I do believe the way that the cadets were groomed and the way that they are providing instruction, like some of it I was like, dang, I learned from Mike D about a range card. And this was when he tortured me during our
sensitive words these days.
He tortured me during the spur ride. Nah, like he helped me survive the spur ride actually. But
yeah.
He taught me about a range card. I didn't know what it was, you know what I'm saying? But the cadets get a little bit of exposure to range cards. And some of the things that they were learning, I'm just sitting back. Like, if I ever get to, when I walked into classrooms and I was just sitting in a classroom, and most of the time I'm learning. Like, I didn't know this. How come we not learning this? But I do believe some of the information that they receive in cadet land should come over to like NCOES at some point, because I know you can't learn all of it in basic. And if I did learn about a range card in basic training, it probably was like a glance over.
Right,
you know,
right.
It wasn't as detailed as Mike D broke it down to me during the spur ride. You know, so like I use some of that information now, like, and I tell some of these future officers, like, listen, your NCOs, most of them have tons of experience, but some of them just don't know the details behind certain things because they were never exposed to it. Like, you are being exposed to it because you're in college and you have 4 years of doing ROTC stuff. You know, they had, you know, maybe a few months and then they were sent out to go do things. So I tell them, just be mindful of that.
So how are you with all of this? Like, so your upbringing, you're now however many years deep in the service, you've got 2 deployments under your belt, and then you went to Virginia Tech to go train the future leadership. Now you're coming back down to the regular old Army, as we call it, right? And
All grown up.
And you're going back to training probably junior NCOs and some soldiers. Like, what are you going to take, or like, what do you think of like that you can hold on to really and truly, instead that you're going to try to pass down, or like, how is that going to change your style now, going back to a different realm of soldier, I guess it is, if you will?
So I kind of look at my career like it's pretty much over, right? And at this time,
You just getting started.
but no, for real, meaning for me, right? Like, so my career for me is pretty much over, and my major focus now is to mentor and train people so that, one, they're not making the same decisions I made. They have more information that they can use to better their career themselves. You know, so like, I've learned so much from, yes, the deployments. I think like being on Fort Campbell taught me so much. And one thing it did teach me is about all these different resources that are out there that soldiers are not being given because of some types of leadership, you know. I remember Mike D used to look for things for us to do, right? Like, he would get us tickets from the MWR. He would put it, like, make sure that we were tracking different fun things so that soldiers would get out the barracks, you know. And it wasn't a lot of leaders that would do that. And if they did, it was kind of like, you know, oh, this is going on, you know. But I now know so much more, and I hope that when I walk into this position, whatever it may be, the soldiers under me, I'm able to just be like, listen, let's go over what you want to do with your life. Like, I learned about a baseball card in Iraq, meaning like where the officers will put like a picture of their DA photo, and then they will identify their goals for the next 5 to 10 years, personal and professionally, right? I didn't know about that until my 06 had me do one at this organization. I'm like, bet. I take that back. I learned about it in Iraq. I saw, because I was working at ALOC, and my S1 rep, he was processing them. And I was like, what are these? You know? And he told me about it. And I was like, I've never seen this before. How come they don't do this for NCOs? So, like, those are tools that I plan on using more about schools. Not necessarily just Army schools, but, like, you know, civilian schools, certifications, you know? Like, listen, Uncle Sam has so much out there that we can be using, and a lot of us just don't know about it because no one talks about it, because all they want you to do is work, work, work. Be in the supply room all day. Yeah. You know what I mean? Sun up, sundown, you in the supply room. Like, for what?
It's crazy that you said that, because there are a lot of different resources that I didn't find out until I was, like, well halfway into my career, and I'm just like, man, like, where was all of this stuff at back when? You know what I mean? Like, maybe when there was time, or just to know about it, period. You know what I'm saying? So I think that is a huge thing that we miss out on from the enlisted side, that is kind of handed on a silver platter, if you will. Just listening to your stories, Reneice, of being in Cadet Command and working at Virginia Tech, and then just from my own personal experience, like there's so much information that you find out way later on in life that very early on in your careers as officers you kind of get. So yeah, I think that's really good actually to help continue to pass that torch on to somebody else.
It sounds like the Army has worked exactly the way it's supposed to with your career, which is line unit, deployments, go away, teach people, come back, and now you get to bring all of that experience back to another unit in a higher rank, higher, I'm saying again, and I gotta stop that shit. Higher part of responsibility, and so now your circle, your why, is much bigger than when it was when you were at Fort Campbell as an E5.
Facts, absolutely.
Yeah, so you're probably, I'm not speaking for you, but I feel like coming straight from Virginia Tech, where you've had a bunch of kids, a bunch of essentially teenagers and people that have no clue what they're kind of getting themselves into, and now you're going to go back to a line unit where potentially everybody kind of thinks they know what they're talking about and what they're doing, and you're going to struggle to get people to listen to you in the same way that everybody's doing like this at you at Virginia Tech.
Some of them are falling asleep.
Wanting to hear your story. And so I bet that's going to be a very good, interesting challenge, because
it is.
It's going to be you not necessarily trying to prove yourself, but just re-earn your stripes.
I mean, that part too, like proving myself. I mean, like we all know that anytime you go to a different organization, you got to prove yourself, right? As well as anytime you have new leadership and a new command team, especially as a supply rep, you got to prove yourself, right? Because they come in like, my last supply sergeant screwed me over, so you're not going to screw me over. Like, if you don't sit down and review this property book.
Yeah.
But yes, you're absolutely correct, because yes, it is working kind of full circle. The interesting part is that my time at Virginia Tech was not a broadening assignment. It was not a specialty assignment. I was actually slotted as a supply sergeant working in a dungeon. And so my introduction into teaching was on the graces of my my colonel that I was working for. So coming back now after spending 3.5 years at Virginia Tech, I've missed out on a lot. So like the switch to GCS's Army, like before, man, Peebus, I was a beast. You know what I mean? GCS's Army, I was like, who's going to a Z Park? Like, what is that? I'm sorry, not a Z Park, a S-Loke. Like, what is that S-Loke? Why they just gonna say Henry C? You know? So I will be essentially learning from my privates and from like my sergeants and so forth, and they're gonna be like, she a whole song first class. Why she don't know this?
That's exactly how that's gonna go.
Hey, but the schoolhouse, I would lean on the schoolhouse. Call Fort Lee. There's a lot of those instructors there, both retired military and current military, that's what they're there for, is to be able to call them and say, hey, I just got to my unit. Can you send me some resources? Can you tell me which direction is up? And I mean, that's what they do, and that's what they're there for. So don't be afraid to reach back to Fort Lee. And
I ain't got no problems in contacting people real quick.
And I'm sure that in your time at Virginia Tech, there are lots of connections already made at Fort Lee anyway. So that should be a smoother transition for
I mean, my connections mostly like at warehouses, like I'm signing for
free sunglasses.
Well, damn, Reneice, it was good talking to you. Number one.
Well, this was fun.
It was.
I'm gonna change the title of the episode from 9/11 to Massey, because it seems like it was kind of more of the direction, which is good. That the whole point of why we started this was just to talk to people and hopefully talk to more soldiers that just need to be able to talk, and not necessarily us trying to hunt people down and bother them on a Tuesday evening while you're packing to go to Hawaii.
I still gotta do laundry. Like,
Oh my god.
Nah, just throw it all in there. It's gonna be stinky by the time you get over there anyway. Just use a grocery bag and put it all in there.
But it's also good too, though, because you get active duty resources that are still available, even for. I mean, we have Bobby Joe in our Discord chat, you know, and she may be able to provide resources for certain things that active duty wise you didn't know about, or maybe you did know, but y'all can share, and then you can have some that may still potentially help some soldiers. And then whenever you decide to get out, Mike might be able to help you. I don't know, something with the VA or whatever it is, or I might be able to pass some resources along. So,
look, it's white.
you getting a little gray there, buddy?
Yep. I got some grays coming in.
But
that's because I don't have drill. I don't have drill again until October.
Oh yeah, you're.
So I'm being a really good officer here, keeping my appearance up off duty.
Mm-hmm. Gotta love it, man.
I appreciate you guys having me on, thinking about me the last few hours before I get on a plane.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
We'll continue to pray for you. We'll pray for you. We'll pray for your career. That you'll continue to impart great wisdom on our future leaders. We are a profession that needs to get back to being a profession.
I think we are a profession. I think we're just evolving.
I think that's true. My opinion is that the Army and the military as a whole, but specifically the Army, has really ruined the trust of the American people over the last 5 years. Between everything that's gone at Bragg, at Hood, at Drum, there's just been a lot of stuff that's happened that has really crushed some of the trust of the American people, and I think that by the definition of a profession, we've gotten away from that and need to really get back to that. But that's probably a different topic.